All right, if you're looking to completely cut through the noise and finally master the core CPR and AED guidelines, you are in the exact right place. Consider this explainer your ultimate foolproof test prep cheat sheet. We're going to break down the critical numbers, the specific age-based differences, and the real life-saving logic behind it all so you can confidently know exactly what to do in an emergency.
Let's kick things off with a pretty high-stakes scenario. Imagine you find an unconscious adult on the ground, and then, hypothetically, later find an unconscious child. Do you actually know why your very first step changes completely between those two? It's a massive difference that literally dictates survival rates, and understanding the why behind it is exactly what we're going to figure out today. So, here is our syllabus for the next few minutes. We'll start with scene safety and first steps, then compressions and age-based rules. Next up, airway and rescue breathing, followed by operating the AED. And finally, we'll wrap up with choking and the recovery position.
All right, let's dive straight into section 1, scene safety and first steps. Before you even think about laying a finger on a victim, your absolute first priority is safety. You have to check for imminent dangers and never, ever enter an unsafe environment. Think about a major chaotic emergency, like the tragic situation at the Pulse nightclub in Florida. Even highly trained paramedics don't just rush into a dangerous building first. They actually wait for the police to clear the scene. You need to act with that exact same first responder mindset. Stay at a safe distance and call for help if the scene isn't secure. Because, honestly, you can't save anyone if you become a victim yourself.
So answering that opening question, it all comes down to the baseline versus exception rule. When an adult goes into cardiac arrest, it's almost always an electrical issue with the heart. Because of that, they need an AED immediately, meaning your very first step is to call 911 to get that machine on the way. But an unwitnessed child or infant arrest, that's the exception. It's normally a respiratory issue. They lacked oxygen, which caused the heart muscle to stop. Because of this, your priority completely shifts. You actually must deliver 2 minutes of CPR first to get oxygenated blood to their brain, and then you call 911. Moving right along to section 2, compressions and age-based rules. I want you to literally stamp this magic number into your brain, 10. You only have 10 seconds maximum to assess a patient or interrupt your chest compressions. Whether you're pausing to give rescue breaths or to apply an AED, the absolute goal is to have your hands right back on that chest, pumping blood in less than 10 seconds. No exceptions. And when you're actually doing those compressions, your rate needs to be strictly between 100 and 120 beats per minute. What's kind of fun and incredibly memorable here is that this required rate perfectly matches the beat of the classic Bee Gees song, Stayin' Alive. If you pump the chest to the beat of that song, your pace is flawlessly in line with standard guidelines. Let's break down the exact depths and hand placements you need to memorize. For an adult, it's 2 hands pressing down 2 to 2.4 inches. For a child, you use 1 or 2 hands depending on their size, pressing down precisely 2 inches. And for an infant, you only go 1.5 inches deep using just 2 fingers or the 2-thumb encircling technique if your hands start getting tired. Lock those numbers in. But wait, there's a really important exception here for bariatric or severely obese patients. That standard 2 to 2.4 inch depth we just talked about, it is simply not going to be enough for, say, a 400-pound adult. In these cases, you must compress 1/3 the depth of the chest. You literally have to penetrate the fat, the muscle, and the breastbone to actually reach the heart and pump that blood. Okay, so equally important to the push is the release, which is known as recoil. You must allow the chest to completely return to its normal position between compressions. Think of it exactly like a ketchup bottle. When you squeeze the bottle, ketchup comes out, right? But to get more ketchup into the nozzle for the next squeeze, you have to let the bottle completely expand. If you don't let the chest fully expand, the heart has absolutely no time to refill with blood, which means you're doing a ton of exhausting work with zero actual benefit to the patient. Which brings us perfectly to section 3, airway and rescue breathing. Let's break down rescuer ratios, because this is huge. If you're on your own, a single rescuer, it's 30 compressions and 2 breaths for all ages. But here is the massive shift. If a second rescuer arrives for a child or an infant, your ratio changes to 15 compressions and 2 breaths. Since kids go into arrest primarily from a lack of oxygen, cutting the compressions in half before giving breaths essentially doubles their oxygen intake over 2 minutes. Now, on the flip side, if a patient has an advanced airway, like an intubation tube, you just do continuous compressions with 1 breath every 6 seconds.
When you're actually giving those breaths, there's a foolproof method. First, tilt the head back and lift the chin. When someone is in cardiac arrest, they completely lose muscle tone, meaning their tongue just collapses and blocks the throat. This maneuver physically moves the tongue out of the way. Second, deliver a breath that lasts just 1 second. Don't breathe too fast or too hard, or the air is going to bypass the lungs, enter the stomach, and make the patient vomit. And third, if the chest doesn't rise on the first try, just reposition the head and try again.
All right, Section 4, Operating the AED. We're getting into the technological side of the rescue now. I really need to hammer this home because people tend to overcomplicate it in the heat of the moment. The very first thing you must do when an AED arrives, even if you've never touched one in your entire life, is simply turn it on. That's it. Step 2 is just listen. The machine is completely voice-guided and will literally speak to you, telling you every single step to take.
When that machine yells, "clear," you have to completely stop your compressions and step back. Do not touch the patient. Why? Well, if you're touching them while it analyzes, the machine might accidentally pick up your heartbeat instead of the victim's. And far worse, if you're touching them when it delivers a shock, you're going to get shocked too, which could send your own heart into a deadly rhythm.
You also really need to understand the term asystole. Basically, that's the technical word for a flat line, meaning there is a total lack of electrical energy in the heart. Understanding this shows exactly why you can't just rely on a machine. Asystole is a completely non-shockable rhythm. The AED will detect no energy and simply refuse to shock. That is why continuous, deep CPR is so absolutely critical. You have to mechanically pump the blood yourself because a machine cannot fix a total lack of energy. Finally, Section 5, Choking and Recovery Position. If you're dealing with a choking infant and they suddenly lose consciousness, the protocol shifts instantly. Move them to a flat surface and begin CPR right away. When you pause to give breaths, look inside the mouth. If you can actually see the object, you can use your pinky to sweep it out. But absolutely no blind finger sweeps. Digging around in there when you can't see anything is just going to push the object further down their airway. Now, if you successfully get their heart and breathing started again, you have to put them in the recovery position. Roll them into a stable, true lateral or side-lying position. Their head should be resting on something like their arms or a pillow with absolutely zero pressure on their chest so they can breathe easily. We keep them on their side so that if they happen to vomit, gravity keeps their airway clear, rather than them choking with their face stuck in the ground. I want to leave you with this really powerful thought straight from our source material regarding chest compressions. Any damage we do to that chest, we can fix. But if you don't compress deeply enough, we cannot reverse that brain damage. People are always terrified of pressing too hard, thinking they might break a rib. But remember, for every single minute that goes by without CPR, the victim loses 10% of their brain function. A broken rib? That's fixable with time and medication. A brain without oxygen is not. So, looking back at everything we've covered today, with those magic numbers memorized, the 10-second rule, the 100 to 120 beats per minute, and those crucial age-based exceptions completely clear in your mind, I just have one final question for you. Are you prepared to step in and save a life? Hold on to this blueprint, trust the knowledge you've gained, and remember that your direct, focused action is exactly what it takes to bring someone back. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer today.